Hello and welcome to the Sacral Circle, where we are healing sexual trauma collectively and lovingly. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and I'll be interviewing women from all walks of life who have had to face a sexual tragedy or abuse in one form or another and triumphed over their adversity. On every episode, a guest will deliver inspirational support, words of comfort, and empowering healing advice. They'll courageously share how their experiences impacted their lives and what led them to face and conquer the blockages that kept them from fully reconnecting to their inner power and divine feminine sacredness. Be sure to subscribe to my podcast, The Sacral Circle. Just search The Sacred Stories on iTunes. To learn more about my coaching and healing services, visit JanieTerrazas.com. I want to thank our beautiful listeners for joining us today on the Sacral Circle, the self-love haven where we leave judgment at the door. And today I'm super excited because I get to sit and share time with the lovely Emelina Holland, also known as her medicine name, Moon Jaguar Sees the Dawn. She's a high priestess of love and a womb keeper of sacred creative manifestation. She's a practical mystic, healer, metaphysical artist, and author. She's also the founder of the Sacred Flame Sisterhood Circle, Sacred Root Dance, and she incorporates holistic alternative healing modalities with divine quantum healing and sacred manifestation practices through intentional creativity and various innovative, organic, and intuitive artistic expressions. Thank you so much for being with us, Emelina.
Thank you so much, Janie. This is really an amazing and magical opportunity. I love the energy that is connecting us, and I am looking forward to sharing my wisdom, my insights, and the stories that come out today.
Yes, absolutely. Just when we first connected on the phone, everything about my soul song was so lit up because a lot of my work, which is where your work is rooted in, it's like getting to the authentic self. And the only way we can really get there is through healing. But that takes a lot of vulnerability and also the desire really to get to a place of ease and inner peace. And it's a very uncomfortable process. But when we walk it, when we get through it, we can't really put into words the liberation and the freedom that you feel within self the more you claim your sovereignty.
It begins with us. It truly begins with us. There's no question about it.
Please tell us where you're from, because your accent's so beautiful.
Thank you. Well, I am originally from northern Mexico, the state of Sonora. And when I was tuning into our interview and I was asking for guidance to see what are the events that will be better for today's story. There were two in particular that came up. And the reason why I wanted to even share this is because obviously nothing is two-dimensional, and especially when it comes to our lives and our stories. And there were many, many other things that were part of my life that have influenced me and impacted me in many different ways. But these, I would say, are very specific to what we're weaving together. Kind of like what you were mentioning, you and I have some resonance, some soul sisterhood, some relationship. It's almost like we have a thread. And then we met Rebecca, and I'm friends with Rebecca too, and I really admire her work. And then we have another thread there. And so it's almost like we're connected with these soul threads, and we're weaving something together. And two of the events in my life that I feel were wanting to come out in this story today, because like I said, there were other things in between too, but one was that I did experience a birth trauma. And I was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck 3 times. And based on what my mom would tell me, she said that the doctor immediately left her on the bed and took me and did CPR on me. So I don't know. I have never met that doctor, but I am deeply grateful for that human being that saved my life. So near-death experience as soon as I was being born, and that also triggered other things. But it's something that obviously I didn't have words for it. And I didn't have a way to verbalize it when I was a child either. In fact, I didn't even have a memory, or I don't remember. I just know it because it's something that I was told about. My mom was so grateful that I made it, and she would tell me about what happened, right? Then later on in 4th grade, I went to a Catholic school that was co-ed. And for some reason, my teacher at the time happened to be an individual, a male, who was dealing with his own traumatic issues. And he found a way to touch girls in the classroom inappropriately. Yeah, in your school, your own school. You know what I mean? Your parents send you to school, they think you're gonna be safe with the teacher, and these men who knows what inspired or motivated him to do that, and he did it for years and years and years. What happened to me is that after I had that experience, we used to wear skirts, uniform. And after I had that experience, I remember I started wearing shorts under my skirt all the time. Just safe, And I was kind of more guarded and cautious. When I was in high school, they notified us that that particular person was going to be, who was in elementary school at the time, he was going to be moved to the library. So eventually they caught him like many years later, right? And at that time, I'm a teenager and I had already developed a pretty good sense of vocal expression. And I was pissed.
I can only imagine.
I was angry. I was like, I know what he did, and I know it now. I'm a young adult, or I'm a teenager, and I know what he did, and I know he was wrong, and I just wanted to strangle him. And I was crying in tears, angry. And one of our teachers who would teach humanities, a humanities class, was or had a counseling degree also, and I could not hold it. Janie, I could not hold it. I was shaking, angry, crying in tears, holding my hands, and she was trying to calm me down. And then when I told her about it, then she somehow did some investigative work and found out that there were others in my same class, other women from my class that had been also in the same 4th grade class and had also been a victim of this man. But because of the way the culture and religion were influencing people at the time, no one else wanted to come forth with the situation because they were afraid, they were ashamed, and practically they were afraid. They were afraid of how families, were going to see them, how that was going to affect their ability to get a boyfriend and get married. And they were afraid. They were ashamed.
Yes.
They were ashamed. And it's that shame thing. And me, I was pissed. I was like, seriously? It's like,
yeah, it didn't. Yeah, it manifested in you in a different way.
It did. And for many different reasons, I think. And
Oh, and I already like
uh,
can see them. Like it's like I know
yeah,
I don't know you, but it's like I feel
yeah,
like I already know you, and you and I are so transparent and we're so
yeah,
connected that I'm literally
yeah,
seeing your filing, your cabinet. I call it the file cabinet. So I'm kind of
right.
seeing like, oh, it's this is why, and that point in her life, this is why it showed up like this for her, because I'm seeing your bigger soul mission as to why you came here. So
Wow, I'm getting goosebumps. I mean, I'm getting the chills all over my arm as I'm listening to you because yes, there were so many other things that happened and many things that the ones I healed them, once they got distilled, right? I
yes.
was able to get the essence of those experiences and I can see how everything, just everything was part of a woven root.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because it is. It does feel like inner strength,
Mm.
inner strength where um at some point it's like it doesn't freaking matter what anybody thinks and if anyone is judging it or
Yes.
trying to criticize any of this. There's so much healing that has taken place to where I've really have in my hands the pure essence of everything that has happened to me
Hmm.
and how I'm actually using it as a foundation to create um, what my soul came here to create in a more authentic way and feeling fully supported by that root, by
Yes.
that essence that it is like a strong root. So one of the things that you did ask me, when we were connecting, it's like, how did I, what did I do to heal, those things? And I do want to touch, I do actually want to sort of get into that.
Yeah.
Because as a child and as a teenager, being in a different country and having different resources, I found that there were two things that took place for me. One was that I did have the experience of family and community support. So even though I had this experience with these men, um, I also got to see other men who were beautiful, who
Mm.
were huge role models for me, and
Mm.
they were supportive and gentle and kind and respectful and honoring and loving.
Wow.
And I got to see the ones that were explosive and macho behaviors, oppressive to women. But then I also got to see the ones that weren't. And then I had many male friends and male family members, cousins, and I got to experience what it was like to be taken care of and really be cared by males of different ages. I remember I was not a heavy drinker, but I did make made a mistake a couple of times and I passed out. And my male friends did not take advantage of me. They instead took me to the bed and helped me when I was in the shower to wash my face. They tried to like take care of me. They didn't take advantage of me. They took care of me. And these were like teenagers,
Yeah.
my age.
Yes.
And so at that, the fact that um I had those experiences, I think it's huge. But up until that time, I still hadn't told anyone about this experience except for that one teacher that had counseling background and that I felt she was a good I did not go forth with it because I didn't think people could understand and I didn't feel supported. However, I did have that one woman who had the special training and heart to understand the situation with love and unconditional love nonetheless.
Yes, like
So
compassion. Compassion
compassion and non-judgment. Yeah.
it's such a key ingredient in your healing process.
At this point in my journey, I can I'm not gonna justify what he did at all.
But you
However, I can
understand.
totally see that he may have been struggling with something similar. He may have
Yes,
been abused in his childhood.
yes.
He
And
may have been a hurt individual acting out of his own um, you know, I'm gonna call it dissonance.
I agree with you. There's nobody, not a single human being that inflicts pain on another human being, like imposes some type of superiority over them, it is coming from a place of pain. Nobody can
It
pain
hurts.
another unless they've been hurt. And
Yes.
so, even like all of the times I've been sexually assaulted, earlier you mentioned you are able to look at your past and find the beauty and the pure essence of all the good and the bad, the beautiful, I call it finding the beautifulness in the mess. When you're able to
Mm-hmm.
look at your past and all of your trauma from that perspective, it opens you up to a deeper sense of healing, because you're able to like understand it all and then use it to help you and propel you in life, whatever that, in
Yes.
whatever manner that may be. A lot of the people in my immediate family circle are really, really beautiful gentlemen. And I think, had it not been for them, because I've been sexually assaulted by so many different men and been hurt by so many different men, but I always had this resilience and I never saw all men as that. And you just brought something to my awareness that I think, because I had these beautiful gentlemen in my life, it somehow
Yes.
was able to offset my perspective. So yeah, I
Yes.
mean, that was the first time I ever even considered it in that way. And all of a sudden I had this beautiful, deeper love.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mama.
Yeah,
So I just wanted to say
it's
thank you.
very, oh, absolutely. It's very important. I'm glad that you actually took the time to elaborate on it from your own perspective too, because when I was actually tuning in to this interview to just, with my intuitive guidance and trying to figure out, okay, where where do I begin, with this, right? And then it was so clear, so visual, so vivid, all these men in my life and how they have been such a huge support and kind, unconditional love and caring in so many different levels that I believe I perhaps may have taken for granted before, not because I wanted to take it for granted, but because I just didn't see it then. And so, just like you're seeing it right now, and it feels like a huge realization, and you're like, wow, so grateful, right?
Yes.
Just adding, I just want to rewind a little bit because I believe that the whole concept of balance is very important. People just feel that there are times when wounded people rely solely on community relationship support without doing the inner work and the inner healing, and it becomes very taxing to their relationships. And
Yes.
there are times when others do not seek relationship or community support, and instead they isolate themselves in whichever way they find comforting. It could be creativity or it can be meditation, but then they're lacking that support. And the healing seems to me, or at least that healing process seems to me, not as wholesome, because you do end up doing all this isolated healing work, but then at the time of you trying to relate with others, it could be a little choppy,
Yes.
trusting life and trusting others again. And,
Yeah.
or the opposite happens where people rely too much on their community support that they don't learn how to tune into their inner wisdom and
Yes.
their own self-healing abilities. So I like to kind of add to that, because in
Yeah.
between, and this is kind of part of what you're talking about, in
Yeah.
between my event with that teacher, it was in fourth grade, until I was a more mature teenager, leading to a young adult. I didn't have anyone to talk to about this. I did not feel comfortable talking to my mom about it when I was a child. I didn't know how to take it, what to make of it. Secondly, my mom was a busy mom with other children. I'm the oldest, so she had another two,
Hmm.
and busy trying to work. And so, I feel I had a level of support as I was growing up, but then I didn't have a way to voice what had happened to me. And I found that shortly after, um, first of all, my dad was very supportive, very loving and affectionate with me. when I was a child growing up. And very, gosh, he supported my intelligence. He supported my autonomy. He supported me even when I got into it with him and argued and we disagreed. He still saw me, and I could see it in his eyes. Even when he was upset sometimes, and that was huge, huge. And so shortly after I had that event, and I may kind of crack a little bit because my dad passed away this year, so just bear
Oh
with
my
me.
God. And you know what? I'm
So
crying right now. Like, and now
yeah,
I have a deeper understanding of why, because you're really tripping me out right now, because there's some parts of our lives that are very parallel, and it
yeah,
sounds like, hold on.
yeah. No, it's okay. Take your time. I'm used to it.
Okay.
I'm okay crying and talking at the same time.
Oh
So
my God.
take your
Okay,
time. But
so my dad, he treated me the way your dad treated you. Like my dad, he was so respectful of women. I've never seen my dad disrespect my mom or any other woman or anything like that. And he always, we have a lot of similarities, but even when we would get into it with each other, sometimes, right, or whatever, he would always like laugh at the end, and he'd be like, God, you're so good at talking. And he's like, and he's like, he would always tell me, you need to become a lawyer. And
what about you told me? Oh my god! Oh my god!
I know,
That was
and
what my dad would tell me. He actually encouraged me to go into law, and so when I was we was a sophomore or junior, it took a pre-law uh, channel in our educational system is different. And so I got prepared in high school with pre-law courses to become a lawyer by the time I graduated. So it was so funny.
I know. Yeah, you reminded me that he was always supportive of my intelligence, but then he was also so supportive of like all of my interests, endeavors, or aspirations. So like, oh, I want to do a talent show or whatever it was, or I was on dance, and he
Yeah,
was like always there
that
to
was my
support,
dad.
always there to
Yep.
support whatever it was that I did.
I can relate. I can relate to all of what you're saying. Oh my God.
And I feel like your dad is with us right now. Like he's so proud of you. Oh my
Yeah.
God. And you know what's
Yeah.
even more cool? Oh my God, this is what's coming to me right now. I'm feeling like he's like wanting you to know where I am right now. I get a viewpoint of your healing work from a place that even you don't get to see while you're there, like in a physical body on that like plane. Like I'm above. And so all of your seeds and all of the ripple effects of everything you're doing, like there's people right now talking about something you said to them, or you're coming to their mind in a moment where they're about to have a moment of weakness, and your voice is coming forward. All of these like ping, 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 ping of Emelina's like love seeds that you have sprinkled on the planet. Your father gets to see the
Yeah.
sparks. Do you see what I
Yeah.
mean? Oh my
Yeah.
God. Ah.
And I wanna add to what you were sharing, because it's very it's like this little extra part of the thread or the yarn, and it came to me as you were sharing all these things. And um it's like an organic impulse that is coming to me right now. But um two things about what you mentioned regarding to your experience with your dad, and you having also experienced the opposite with the people that you met. The thing that comes to me, there are two things that I want to make sure I mention, and then we can also continue the rest of the story in part two. But one was that if we look at if we look at this picture from a higher perspective, and if I were to sort of share this wisdom to you, Janie, based on my own experience, is that it was beautiful to have that support, our fathers, right? And have that validation. But then once you encounter a path where you no longer getting that validation from other men or other people, is perhaps an invitation to seek that validation from yourself.
Exactly.
So that
That's
you
what
can
was
be
so beautiful. Yes.
so that you can become wholesome, and
Yes.
so that you are not operating any longer. Even though that validation served a purpose in our development,
Uh-huh.
it is, I feel, it is like a progression part of maturity,
Yes.
to be able to operate from a place where you do not do the things you're doing out of getting validation from external sources. Instead, that validation solid um, is a solid feeling that is already embodied within. And so when you are sharing what you're sharing or doing what you're doing it out of peace and pleasure, from a detached place where you
Yes.
can give it to others unconditionally.
Mm-hmm.
Is because you need validation. And
Right.
the reason why I emphasize this is because there's nothing wrong with others expressing their love to you and expressing the appreciation or how they perceive beauty in what you're doing and what you're saying or what you are. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, by all means, embrace it with grace and gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is when people sometimes are sort of held captive and enslaved
Mm-hmm.
by the need to get external approval and validation. And so they lose their authenticity of their work and their soul calling. And
Mm-hmm.
they get into a path of confusion where, everything needs to have that validation. And the moment they don't get it, they turn into anxiety, depression, and fear. We see actors and actors and musicians heavy duty on addictions or committing suicide because they feel lonely, and or because somehow they're losing popularity on the charts and
Yeah.
the entire world no longer applauds them. And they start creating for the pleasure of creating, for the pleasure
Exactly.
of following your soul calling.
Yes.
And that's very huge because, and I do want to sort of share with you when we do part two of this interview, um, what I have discovered, my exploration and experimentation with creative artistic expression in a spiritual form. Okay, and I
Yeah.
will get more into that, but I did want to let you know, when you were giving me that view about my dad, when you were sharing that perception of you seeing my dad really big, getting the big picture and seeing everything that I'm doing. um, I have some mediumship abilities, how to deliver messages to other people. And I don't do it formally as a way of, not as a job. It's just something that happens organically and intuitively. And it's happened many times throughout my life where I have been in a conversation with someone and all of a sudden I sense this message and this presence. And I ask, hey, by the way, is there a relative that you've been thinking about or that has passed away, because this is coming to me? And so I have had conversations with my dad even after he passed away. Several things that have been able to, I have channeled messages from my dad that there were messages for me that he was asking me to type so that I can see it clearly right in front of me. And I will be shaking. My hands will
Yes.
be cold and I will be in tears typing this
Yes.
thing. And I can see his face and I can see him free and I can see him smiling. And so I do get that. I do get that picture where and by the way, I can see him like that now
Mm-hmm.
because I've done a lot of inner work to heal whatever resentments and anger I felt towards certain things, that events that I perceived to be huge hurts and mistakes that I felt my dad made with me. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, once I healed those mistakes he made or those events that may have had a sour taste in my life, um, I got that distilled essence of the relationship and everything my dad was to me and how supportive he was to me. How I'm so grateful for, he's the one that saw me singing when I was 9, and he just got so excited. He's like, "Oh, you can sing! Let's sing everywhere and everyone."
We have got to continue this conversation. The fact that you brought up the point about the balancing of allowing those outside of yourself to assist you, but not completely relying on the social circle and or going completely introverted and staying in complete hibernation.
One thing to add to that, just real quick, one thing I want to add, because I do want us to definitely get into this in part 2, please make sure we do, is I really would like to elaborate on how I perceived balance in this particular dance, how these balance, because many people think that balance is stationary, and then that's where they also get that creative blocks, the freeze response. But I would like, in our part 2, I want to talk to you about what balance has been for me and how organic and dynamic balance has been for me.
Yes.
Very important. We definitely get into that so that we can. I noticed that's something that when I was learning from others and or observing others' processes would create dissonance and a stagnant energy.
I wrote that just like about 30 seconds ago. I wrote stagnation.
Stagnation is not something we want.
Right. And that I'm really glad that we're going to get into that, because people need to have a deeper understanding of why it's important for there needs to be movement and action, and then there's inaction. There's stillness, but then there's also that moment of momentum.
I see an infinity symbol is dancing in front of me as we're talking. Is that inward, outward dance, inward, outward dance. And we're going to talk about that. Yeah, we'll definitely elaborate more.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone that is listening.
Yes. Again, feel free to let them know how they can connect with you, and we will be doing a part 2 to this interview.
Yes. Visit my website. My email address and my phone number are both, I believe, on my website. And it is www.emelinasart.com. EMELINASART.com. And I really thank you, everyone, for being here with us. And we look forward to meeting with you again in part 2.
Yes, and thank you to our beautiful listeners for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the Sacred Stories podcast on iTunes, where you'll find other impactful, inspiring shows. Connect with me via our social media pages. You'll find us at the Sacral Circle. Your shares and likes are greatly appreciated because they help spread the love. If you have any questions about my coaching and healing services, visit my website at janieterrazas.com. As we say goodbye, always remember to know your worth and continue to love and value yourself wholeheartedly. Peace be with you.